view from the department that local governments will do the necessary consultation that needs to happen, but however, they are not there to enforce and regulate which way it should be done. So the Act itself allows the local government to set its own processes and how it wants to review its local laws. And we are recommending that it would be the best governance way to have a process whereby when we're doing this process, we start off by reporting a report to council, providing an actual proposed amendment. And at that stage, it's not actually to adopt the local law, but to seek from council the actual authority to go for public advertising in terms of the law before it's actually adopted. This gives them the opportunity to put up for at least a 21-day period when we call for submissions. Once that's been done, then a report can be tabled back to council seeking the final actual adoption, and then that will give us a chance to take into consideration any of the submissions or feedback that council does receive during that period. Any questions before I move on from that piece of the local laws? Thank you. Moving on to the policy review. So we did identify from our previous meeting 14 policies that were overdue, and we did set a priority 1 and 2 to review those policies. Since then, there's a lot of work that's been going in the background. We have met with the relevant managers. As we speak, the managers are undertaking the review of most of those policies as detailed in the table in the report. We are identifying, however, there are some policies that are very administrative, and by that I mean they are in relation to staff matters rather than council, or should I say community-focused matters. So, for example, like uniform policy. So we are doing some more work in the background as well. We are reviewing the current policy framework. And we have had some consultation with the management team, and we're looking at drafting a discussion paper to come to a strategy meeting, so we can have a look and discuss what's in our actual current framework, and have a look at is there any things that we can change to do better for the actual whole process as a whole, and how we review our policies. So we'll be tabling that to a strategy meeting in the future. But moving on some of the work that we have done in regards to the overdue ones, there are already, out of those 11 prior to, there's 7 of them that have already been reviewed as part of the budgeting process. So those policies have come already to council, so they've been adopted as of the 25th of June. Outside that, we've also had a look at some of the IT policies, which we reckon they are administrative. So there is some work that is being currently done by the IT department, and they will be bringing a report as well in the future, which will detail all their strategies and their policies. But we have already given them the assistance they require in reviewing all their 13 policies that they are proposing. Outside that, we've also taken the opportunity to just look at the governance section, to look at all policies we have, that do we have any governance ones related that needs to be amended. And we are presenting today 2 policies. The first one is the privacy policy. The main reason for this one is it's to start off with, it's not on the right template, it's on the old format template. So this is really more modernizing and changing just the content and format of the actual policy itself. And in doing that, we slightly amended the title. We've also, in the draft which you have with you, we've also included a section that covers the information services part as well. And that has come in through the collaboration that we were reviewing the IT policies. And we've identified that information security in itself wasn't actually covered in our privacy policy. So instead of having 2 different set of policies, we just brought that element into the privacy policy. So then now it actually covers everything in relation to how council collects, manages, and discloses personal information that applies to any information that council comes across. The other policy we looked at was the investigations policy. Now with this policy, we haven't changed the actual content of the policy itself, but we thought the title was probably not very appropriate, because at the moment it's just called the investigations policy. So when I did pick it up myself the first time, I actually thought it was the investigations in regards to actual employees. But then in reading it, it's really all about investigations and complaints about councillors. So we just changed the title to make it then investigations policy, councillors' conduct. So it's just quite clear to everyone when they pick that policy, that's what it's in relation to. And in addition to that as well, the whistleblower regulations have recently been changed, and we just got notification. So the idea there was also that we had to look at our investigations policy to see if there is any effect from the changes, but nothing affects us. We already have in that policy everything that they're now adopting at state level. We already have it in terms of having PKF do our whistleblower hotline and how we handle our complaints already, so we didn't have to change much. I think the only other change was cosmetic in the document, where we just had the time frame not detailed correctly, so we just changed that to detail that it is an 8 weeks period that the investigation has to happen. Any questions before I? Yes.
Yeah, through the chair, just with that investigations policy, how often is that reviewed? Because with the Bilkara process still ongoing, will that be changed as things evolve rather than wait until it's time policy for renewal?
So what we are doing, and this is one of the part of the works that we're doing with the policy framework review itself. At the moment, the default change for policy is 4 years, which is, but that 4 years is only if nothing else happens. With all our policies, what we'll be trying to detail in the document is if there are any legislative changes, if there is a need for a policy to be changed, we don't have to wait for the default 4 years. So we can still, but if it is one that you feel that it needs to have a different set, we can change the time that it is reviewed as well.
Yeah, just so long as it reflects the changing situation in Canberra, Brisbane, I should say. Yeah. And just going back to the priority 1 policies, about the water supply, the top one there on page 13, just that for water to Sapphire and Rivervale, is that still tied to the drought policy, or is that a separate policy for when it's not in drought?
So at the moment, they are separate policies, but we are looking at both of them to see whether they need to stay separate or whether they can be one policy. Yeah. So that's part of the review that we're trying to assess, and we've put that question through to the relevant department as well. Yeah,
because they do run out of water outside of a drought. So, yes. I mean, we're drought declared at the moment, so I guess, they're covered if they require water, but there are times, and there has been times in the last couple of years, where the households have actually run out of water and not being in a drought declared area. So, yeah, I just think that maybe it needs to stay separate.
Yeah.
So I just, that's just a comment on that.
Yeah, so we'll take that on notice, and a report will come addressing that specific policy itself once it's been finished the review for that.
Yeah, James, it's I think the wording, the domestic use only, is probably make sure that it's separate to the drought review. But there are other
lots of circumstances outside of that.
Yeah.
And the last part is just the compliance framework. So since our last meeting, we have contacted LJQ, and we're doing the work that needs to be done in order to start configuring the actual system that we're going to be using. So we're still reviewing and looking at all the elements of that. So hopefully when we come to the next report, we'll have a further update in regards to how that is transitioned.
Sure. Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you.
So the recommendation is that CHRC receives the July Governance Update Report and the proposed strategies contained within the report, and further that Council adopt the following policies as presented: privacy policy and investigation policy, Council's conduct. Somebody with that? Thanks, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Brimelcombe, all in favour? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you.
So, councillors, we'll go on to number 12, the information reports, page 53.
Thank you. Through the Chair. Councillors, I'm very pleased to be presenting this report to you today on the Information Services Update Program of Works. I think it's been a while since this report has come to this committee. In summary, before I start talking to some of the detail in there, and I've asked Dylan Stanton to be here to support me today in terms of any technical questions that you ask that I may not have the relevant information to respond. But in summary, I'd actually say that information services, in terms of providing the provision of technology through the deployment of Skype for Business, Office 365 and Windows 10, we are quite progressive as a council. We have a team that strives to please and an ability to deliver outcomes often far exceeding skills and capability. We have strong vendor partners to guide and assist us in the management and ongoing support for our services. But beyond technology, there are opportunities to improve, primarily around building relationships within the business and consolidating our services to ensure maximum value is achieved. So to target these areas of improvement, we've identified 3 focus areas on which to base our activities for Q1 and Q2 of the 1920 financial year. And these are: we need to improve our business engagement with the organisation. We need to consolidate our program of works prior to Tech 1 going live. And we need to build the capability and capacity to improve continued IS support to the business. So I do just have a very busy PowerPoint that's up on the screen, rather than me just talking to quite a long, detailed report. But the detail is there if I need to answer any questions specifically. So our business engagement activity, we worked with the business to identify what the particular stakeholders and business areas specific needs were and what their priorities were, what the current digital services and technologies are to support these priorities, as in like a gap analysis of what we do, further identify gaps in the delivery of ICT services provided by information services, and what future ICT services and technology priorities are for the future operations of the business. We tried to have a forward-looking approach, and what specific issues, risks or opportunities for improvement exist that need to be addressed. So, in summary, if we could go to the next, sorry. In summary, without providing you the detailed report, information services needs to improve our level of engagement with the business. So we must develop capability and capacity within the team to assist with active business engagement and assist with scoping of future requirements related to technology and ICT capability. We need to increase our capacity, so we need to be adequately resourced to provide continued support to the business. And further detail in the report highlights the focus areas for the organisation that we just don't have the capacity to meet the business's expectations. In really simple terms, our IT help desk probably needs to be expanded by at least 2 additional positions to meet the needs and expectations of the organisation. We also need to be able to deliver consistent services across council, and that includes our external control entity, so Central Highlands Development Corporation. We need to be able to meet their expectations for service provision there as well. So just a snapshot of significant events. As you would all be aware, we had that cyber incident in June. I have it in confidential later on in this committee meeting. I have a detailed cyber incident report that provides the analysis into the background as to what happened, what we've actually done in the interim, and what we've put in place to prevent that from occurring again. But in essence, the incident has been contained, and third-party experts in this field have not identified any indication of broader security compromise extending outside our Microsoft 365 environment. And as of the 24th of May, there has been no further external access detected. As you would all be aware, and we certainly felt it in June, we had a Docs on Tap failure. And on the weekend of the 8th and 9th of June, the vendor Harbour Software undertook some major upgrades to their servers that run Docs on Tap system, resulting in significant impacts to council and all of our customers. As part of our ongoing vendor management, we'll be working with the Harbour Software regarding upgrade processes to ensure that there is better communication and understanding of the impacts of upgrades and to reduce the impact this may have in our future operations. So some really good news is that we have renewed the Telstra local buy agreement. Through a detailed review of that, we've identified annual savings of approximately $124,000 as a result of that review. So when I say annual savings, if we continue with the current contract, we would be continuing to pay that additional $124,000 each year. So that's a really good news story. We've deployed all public library internet kiosks. So this is a outstanding, it's an outstanding piece of work that we've now completed, much to the satisfaction of all of the library areas. We've also supported the completion of the Mandalay upgrade, which is significant for Weybridge solutions required to be completed in June. And we did this through data migration and deploying modems to achieve internet connectivity and assisting in the deployment of the new hardware at Emerald Lockleys and the Blackwater facilities. So we've also developed our ICT disaster management plan. The specific objectives of this are around minimising interruptions to normal operations, limiting the extent of disruption and damage, minimising economic impact of the interruption, establishing alternative means of operation in advance, training personnel with emergency procedures, and providing for smooth and rapid restoration of service. We've also developed our cyber incident response plan that will be contained within the closed session report. So not only do we provide a review of what actually happened with our cyber incident, but we've also developed, which in essence is a new policy for how we would respond to those if in the unfortunate event that it happened again, someone tried to breach our laws. We've also developed our ICT policy framework, and as the Manager of Governance alluded to, we've had close consultation with the governance team to ensure that we're consistent with policy framework and etc. the intents there. So our priority tasks for moving forward. An outstanding action on our program of work is being to provide emails for all staff, and without, I'll leave this component to, if you have any questions at the end of my report, that Dylan will be able to help me answer these, which will provide you a little bit of an understanding as to why it's taken so long, and it isn't as simple as just flicking a switch. There are a whole lot of security considerations, and also once you would do that, which is to an additional 200 staff, going back to my first comment around the capacity of the IT help desk. So one would assume that once you do that, that we would have a myriad or a flood of calls for people trying to navigate their way around having access to that, and we just don't have the capacity to be able to respond to that in an adequate time frame at the moment. Most importantly, the network provisioning testing. So this is actually a critical project before we go live with Tech One. That's to ensure that we have the right local area, LAN and WAN, local area network width, bandwidth, right, okay, and also wide area network bandwidth, so that with the increase of just the capacity that we will be implementing in the organisation as a result of Tech One, whether our current network provisioning actually has the right capacity for us to be able to do things in an efficient manner. So in simple terms, I've been advised that in the background, this testing will, we will get into the Tech One test environment and we will send information and we will see how long it actually takes for the receiver of the information to get it. Then in their response, how long it actually takes for them to actually send the information back, and is that a capacity issue? So it's actually really critical for the success of our Tech One project. So that work is happening at the moment, or is starting to happen at the moment. As I said before, we had that very unfortunate failure of Docs on Tap. So what we've been progressing in the background is looking at some other options in terms of alternative software to the Docs on Tap software, such as board paper review software, etc. But what we will be doing is we'll be coming back to Council for an education and awareness workshop on the current software system that we have, so on Docs on Tap, to I would say, workshop what the actual current issues are currently before we make a decision to move to something alternative. But that will be, you know, troubleshooting, going through with every councillor what your particular issues are, and also within the organisation administratively, whether it is the best piece of software for us to continue to use. And that's it in the nutshell. Councillors, do you have any questions around our program at work? And also have the super smart Dylan in the chamber here who might be able to answer any technical questions.
Yes, so I have a question. So the Docs on Tap, as it is now, holds a lot of information, doesn't it? Holds all our councillors' documents, etc. Is that having an effect on? Is it big enough to hold all that?
Yeah, no, it's provisioned sufficiently for that. So it's in basically the same areas you would like your OneDrive storage and everything in the cloud. So there's no issue with that impacting it, like slowing it down or anything. No, it's a ever expanding type situation. So
Councillor Broome,
with the emails for everyone, yes, there's going to be problems as far as setting it up for everyone. There's cyber security with it, with people using their own personal devices. Do they need a virus protection or some protection on that, or what's?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. I guess there's still some decisions to be made around what devices that they could potentially have, and there are BYD options that can be explored as well. And in the BYD world, we're implementing a solution called Intune, which is a Microsoft product that allows us to remotely manage the devices. We wouldn't need to go to the level of managing their personal device, but the app that they use to access that information is actually controlled. It doesn't allow you to, copy data outside of that app into another one. There's a lot of securities you can implement and control with Intune, so there are possibilities there. We just have to understand what devices they're going to be using to enable them to do email for everyone. Yeah.
Through the chair, if I can just make another comment there in that regard. We actually have the capability today to switch on all emails for all staff. But however, without those appropriate security measures, there is significant risk of compromise to our systems. And so beyond technology and the above mentioned security and those mentioned security measures, there's also those business decisions required to make this achievable. So how will we support the business with the increase of its user base by about 25%, which is what I referred to in terms of capacity for the help team? And does every CHRC employee require an email address, or is it focused on extending this capability to a select group who work outside of the corporate offices? We've yet to determine that. And what training will be required for some members with reduced levels of digital literacy? As you know, we do have some components of our workforce that have minimal digital literacy, but we've also been addressing that through those highly successful, through the Tech One change management, digital literacy. I think we've had about maybe 20 or 30 staff engaged in that, people that have had no interaction with any form of technology. And apart from that training, what devices will these members use to access emails? Will it be their own phone? Will it be at home? Will it be an iPad? You know, there are all of those considerations. So it isn't as simple as just switching it on, which we have the capability to do today. So I just wanted councillors to know that there's a whole lot of reasons behind why we haven't ticked this off in our program at work.
Well, I'll just a more of a comment. I would imagine anyone that's going to be using an outside device, which will look into Tech One, as in, you know, record keeping as far as roads, water, whatever, and that device will then being shared, as in, say, water, where there's a person taking over for a weekend, they will need a separate email device, separate email account, I would imagine. So after that, it's really interesting.
Any other questions? Okay. Welcome, Councillor Bell.
You sorry, late. But was some tourist stands there around the place. Couldn't stop.
So, yeah, thanks, Dylan. I didn't see this.
Thanks, Dylan.
So the officer recommendation there is that the CHRC receive the Information Services Update Program of Works. So we'll move that, please. Councillor Holmes, second. Councillor Slyth, all in favour? Thank you. So now we have Safety and Wellness Report, please, Sandy. Introduce our Manager of Safety and Wellness.
Through the chair, again, councillors, just on behalf of the CEO, who normally would be introducing this report, and Sandy, this is part of our Safety and Wellness Report, provides a summary of council's health and safety performance, and the purpose of this information is to highlight to council any issues, risks and opportunities impacting the safety and health of our workers at Central Highlands Regional Council. And I'll hand over to Sandy, our Manager of Safety and Wellness.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Today's report is based on the period May to June. However, I will include some financial year summary totals for you. However, I generally like to do that once I have all that collated at my next monthly report. So for financial year to date, we had 134 incidents reported, which is actually showing an increase in incident reporting, which is a sign that our culture is getting better. We're getting a lot more near miss incidents reported, a lot more incidents reported. A breakdown of those just briefly. I won't go through the full reported detail, but I'll cover up on some highlights. Infrastructure and communities obviously were our highest incidents reported for the financial year. Infrastructure had 66 incidents reported, and of those, 17 resulted in injury or illness, and 10 workers' comp claims, and communities had 43 incidents reported for the financial year, 19 injuries and 3 workers' comp claims. You'll also see a slight change in the corporate services where we normally wouldn't get any injuries or incidents reported, or a very low number. We've had 12 reported in the last financial year with 6 injuries, and that's now incorporating the workshops. So we've got some operational areas in the corporate services structure now, so we've seen a slight change in their performance. And the customer and commercial services had 11 incidents reported and 1 injury, and the Office of the CEO 2 incidents with 1 injury. For the reporting period, we had 2 first aid injuries, 2 recordable injuries. We had 1 worker, there was a musculoskeletal injury when a worker in the workshop section was lifting a tyre and they had strained their shoulder. And we had another worker in the waste transfer areas where they were slipped on a grassy slope and they overextended their elbow and it resulted in an injury. So those are the 2 recordable injuries for the period. We had 8 near-miss incidents and 11 report onlys. We also had a notifiable incident in the reporting period where we had a roller out at Fairburn Dam Road construction site, reversed over a culvert. There was no injury sustained, but it was notifiable that this was a dangerous incident. So a full investigation is being done for that, and the learnings, you'll see, I just wanted to point out to councillors that now that you have access to the Vine, each month we put out our safety and wellness notices on the Vine. And we're also now moving towards where we have these safety alerts, where we have lessons learned. So from any of the we're investigating most near-miss incidents now and all of our dangerous incidents. Those lessons learned are being shared on the Vine and encouraged to be discussed at toolbox talks with our staff. So please, by all means, have a look at those when you're flicking through the Vine. They're really great, very professional. They give you some industry updates. They'll also give you an opportunity to talk to staff about what's going on in the workplace if you're out and about. So we've had, of all of the incidents reported, we've actually had 26 of those incidents, of the 26 incidents reported for the period, we had 4 occupational injuries and illnesses reported. They include the first aid and the recordable injuries. We set our target this year at reducing our occupational injuries and illnesses by 10% from the previous financial year, which was a total of 47. This financial year we came in at a total of 48, so slightly above, but still a reduction on the previous financial year performance. And we'll be doing the same again this year. All of our indicators have got a 10% reduction applied. See if we can bring that number down again. At the time of writing, I didn't have the results for June, so the graphs that you have in your report only take us up to May, but even when I've gone through and actually put the figures in for this year, I was quite alarmed at what the information was displaying because it didn't really reflect on what our performance has been for this year. So I've gone back to local government work care and challenged their statistics that they've published in their report for this this most recent report, because it's actually indicating that our lost time injury frequency rate is sitting at 17.36. Compared to last year, we're at 12.47, so it's significantly higher than we were this time last year. And our lost time duration rate is 33 compared to 29.5 where we were sitting last year. So when I spoke to local government work care, the reason I'm challenging that is because we've actually had a really good year as far as injuries and incidents, and going back and finding out from them this morning, having a bit of a chat, it's apparent that we had 2 cases that were actually carried forward and the lost time injuries were actually paid in this financial year. So we had 2 workers that no longer work with council. One of the workers was on a term contract, and that contract finalised, so their employment finished with council. They were able to return to suitable duties, but because their contract had finished with council and there was no employment opportunity here for them, the local government work care has supported them on lost time injuries until their injury got to stable and stationary. So we almost ended up with another 12 months of full lost time injury that was applied to our statistics, even though we had no control over that, if that makes sense. So, and we also had another similar case where a worker was actually resigned their position at council, but their claim was still active in the background, and it was a full lost time injury as well. So those statistics are currently showing in our current stats. In reality, we had 20 claims this year submitted to local government work care. Of those, we had 9 of them were lost time injuries. 3 of those claims had cumulative lost time greater than 4 weeks, and with the greatest being a worker underwent knee surgery and they had 4.8 weeks of work as a result of that. The other 6 claims were all less than 2 weeks of lost time. So I just wanted to show that, and just to show in comparison, if I've got it on here. So our average lost time days for this financial year was actually 9.92, compared to 88 days in the last financial year and 108 days in the previous financial year. So whilst LGW's statistics are being published, it's not, I don't believe, a true reflection of what our performance is. And so I'd like to, once I do my full financial year summary for you, I'll have a bit more accurate information to be able to report on that, to show you some comparisons. But in summary to that, I just wanted to be able to reiterate that Council's strong commitment to rehabilitation and return to work is showing. We are getting less cases that are on lost time for long periods and getting workers back to work sooner. As far as our safety report, our focus for our team this year is all about monitoring the implementation of the safety management system, and our advisors are actively out conducting work area inspections, currently trying to identify any sort of hazards in the workplaces, and particularly those hazards that have been there for a period of time that haven't been rectified. The CEO has put an emphasis on getting those hazards rectified this year and has provided a budget for us to be able to do that, which is again a reflection of the commitment made to ensure that our workplaces are safe. We conduct internal audits, when I say we, our team conducts internal audits on our safety management system on a rolling schedule each quarter. The last quarter actually was focused on risk management and Council's authority to vote process, and the current quarter that the internal audit is manual handling, road restraints and consultation. The findings from those audits go into our corrective actions register and will be monitored closely to ensure that continual improvement occurs, and that also gets reported up to ELT on a monthly basis so that they're aware of the findings from those audits. During May and June, we had a increased focus on our emergency preparedness and response. We had evacuation drills conducted at most of our workplaces across Council. We actually tested our Juris alarms here in this building. Overall, it wasn't a great success. We took a lot of learnings from those drills. They've been a long time overdue, and it was evident in the response times that we saw in most of the workplaces. All that means for us is that there's a significant amount of work to do, and we have made a commitment to get this right, and you'll see a lot more ad hoc evacuation drills occurring across Council, so they won't necessarily be scheduled and they won't necessarily know they're coming. So in addition to that, we've also identified that many of our workplaces, as well as our halls, didn't have audible or visible alarms available to those places due to the age of the buildings and such forth. So we've actually just gone through, and I don't think the work's been completed yet, but it's actually underway to have manual call points hardwired into all of our depots. I think most of our halls are going to have the hardwired manual call points as well. They won't all necessarily be back to base where they contact 000, but they will actually be a break glass and the audible and visible alarm will sound. In those facilities like those smaller halls, there will be allowed hailers available, and so there's at least some sort of way of letting people know that there's an emergency. So that's a lot of work going on there. There's we've got a whole program around emergency response and preparedness, crisis management as well, falls under that as well this year. So I will report that as we go through at the bi-monthly reports. Consultation is another big area for us, and it is a focus of our internal audit this month. We conduct quarterly health and safety committee meetings, and pleased to say we've got a really active health and safety committee. At the moment, we only have one position vacant, and we've got some really great HSRs in that space at the moment. They're very proactive and really keen to sort of make some changes in the workplace. So really looking forward to working with our new HSRs. They've all just undergone their training. The enforceable undertakings on target and on budget. We've currently delivered 35 deliverables out of the 51. We've had no issues there. All our reporting timeframes and our budget, everything was on compliant for this financial year. So we're getting good reports back from the enforceable undertaking team. There's also just we also got just as far as the regulator, I just wanted to let councillors know that WorkSafe have actually just released a compliance monitoring and enforcement policy. So as a result of the fatalities at Dreamworld and Eagle Farm, there's a big change, and I know I've spoken about this previously in council, but there's a big change to the way that the regulator is managing safety in workplaces. And so I've presented to the whole management team the changes that we should expect in our workplaces. You know, if an inspector turns up now, we will expect to see an improvement notice or an infringement notice. There's no more handshakes, verbal warnings or anything like that. We will actually get notices. So as a result of that, my plan is to roll out some due diligence training for our senior officers and some extended training to the rest of the organisation around ensuring that you're meeting your health and safety obligations. So that's just a point to note. Our contractor management system is well underway. We've got a coordinator in that space now, and most of his day is spent out supporting our contractors and our staff in meeting their health and safety obligations. He's also developing a training program for our staff as well around what do they need to do as far as when they're engaging contractors, how do they identify their hazards, how do they manage those throughout the job. So there's a lot of work going on there. I've spoken about our workers, just with our wellness report. So as I said, we've had 20 workers' comp claims this year. We currently have 2 open workers' comp claims with both of those workers participating in suitable duties. Of those 20 claims, we had 1 psychological claim, 1 laceration and 1 deafness claim, and all other claims were basically soft tissue injuries resulting from slips and trips. So again, we're currently undertaking training for all of our staff, particularly at the construction areas now, in the remote areas, with our occupational therapists and exercise physiologists, where they're getting targeted training as to how to lift, how to move their body, and to get a better understanding of the mechanics and how they can overstrain and things like that. So that will continue to be our focus in our preventative health area. Speaking of, we've engaged with Heart of Australia. So in August and September, we actually have Heart of Australia coming out, so that you may have seen them in our communities. They bring a big heart bus out. They'll be coming out to conduct some education sessions first in August and letting our workers know about good health. And then in September, they'll be coming out to do the preventative health assessments for any worker that wishes to take it. Won't be a mandatory, but it's providing an opportunity for people that may not normally go and see a medical practitioner. A lot of our workers don't. They're a bit old school, particularly some of our gentlemen that haven't been to a doctor in a long time. So I'm hoping that might provide a catalyst that they then go and seek further help from their doctors if they have any identified medical conditions come up. The information that we get from an organisation through this process will help us identify risk factors impacting on our workplace. Obviously the information is anonymous and confidential, but we do get a report back with some trends in different locations, and it will help us identify what we need to target in our workplaces and what's impacting our work, such as diet, alcohol and drug consumption, mental health. All of these sort of factors have an impact on productivity, increased injury, fatigue, absenteeism. So once we get that sort of information, we can target our programs to that. And then I just wanted to quickly note that you wanted to have some information on the drug and alcohol procedure, and I'm sorry I didn't include that in my report, but I can talk to that now if councillors are happy with that. We presented a procedure, the drug and alcohol procedure, to the Joint Consultative Committee in March. As a result of that meeting, the Joint Consultative Committee had consensus in what we had in that procedure at the time. It was then presented to the executive leadership team for comment, and the executive leadership team had a number of concerns around the disciplinary action components of that procedure, and as such, council sought legal advice on the procedure. We made some changes to that procedure as a result of the legal advice that we'd received, and that those changes then were presented back to the Joint Consultative Committee offline to provide feedback in May. I've since received feedback from the Joint Consultative Committee, and there continues to be concerns around the synthetic drug testing requirement that we're trying to introduce here at Council, and to a point where I'm almost going to make a recommendation that we remove that from this current version of procedure and continue to tackle that subject matter offline so that we can get this moving forward. So we've got to the end of this month. I've provided opportunity for the JCC to make further response, and then that'll go back to the executive leadership team for their final comment. In saying that, we introduced the requirement or the opportunity for us to test for synthetic drugs because we wanted to be a deterrent for any worker that was currently on a monitored return to work program. We didn't want to be able to encourage them to then go and turn their habits to synthetic drugs rather than, you know, because they're not detectable in our testing program. So that is the intent around why we introduced it. We do know that it's an issue in our communities, and we wanted to be able to deter workers from heading down that pathway. But in the last 12 months, we've tested over 255 of our workers for drugs and alcohol, and we've had 0 non-negative results back. So I don't believe we've actually got a significant issue in our workplace. So it might be something that we look at, whether we're going to continue these conversations, but that'll be up to the CEO and the ELT to make their recommendations at the end of this month as to which way we council will press forward on that.
Questions?
Okay.
Just a question with diabetes and asthma, is that part of being aware of what problems are and what the health issues are with those?
Yes, Councillor, in the preventative health assessment, the worker will actually go through, it goes right through everything from medical conditions such as diabetes and cardiovascular risk. It's got your diabetes, it's got all your lifestyle impacts. They end up with about a 28-page report of all of their risk factors. So it breaks it right down. They take a blood test. So they go through and they actually identify, there's a whole list of them. And from that, what we'll be encouraging, and if there is any worker that's got a medical condition that requires a management plan as such in the workplace, then we've got processes to manage that. So they'll be encouraged then to come back and provide that information to council if that's what they wish to do, so that we can provide support for them in the workplace. Another one that we have sometimes is epilepsy. Epilepsy is another one that we provide support around management plans, diabetes particularly. We've just, with the infrastructure guys, they've just purchased 12 defibrillators to be included in all the trauma kits that are going out to our remote work areas now to support, because we know we have a high risk for cardiovascular disease in our ageing workforce. So there's some of the things that we're doing from the mitigating perspective, I suppose. Thank you.
Well, I just think the impact between the variance of the numbers of this year and those that have been given to us by WorkCover. Is that have a major effect on our insurance renewal policy and the dollars attached?
Yeah, it definitely does. Our premium is calculated on both our amounts paid out in statutory claims as well as common law cases, so it definitely does impact on that. That's why I'm wanting a formal response from local government work care, because it's not reflective of what we're seeing, and I sometimes get misinformation when I contact them. So, and going forward this year, we'll be calculating our own statistics as well, so that I can make sure that we're comparing that information with what they're providing us for accuracy.
A lot of concerns if suppose double dipping's a hard term to use, but if they, you know, we paid dearly that last year because there were claims and there's outstanding claims. I mean, we have to clarify them on the outstanding claims. And so premiums were up last year, then we get double dip, they carried over to this year, so we pay higher premiums again. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's just needs to be monitored really strongly because it's considerable amounts of money involved in that. And I think we've always said we'd rather be spending that money on safety and improving workplaces than just having insurance policies that are there for as a last resort. So yeah, if you can follow that through for us, that'd be great. The other one was just understanding new workplace health and safety stuff that's come through following those two significant incidents, both at Gold Coast and at the racecourse, Brizzy. There's been some major alterations to liability in regards to boards and to ELT executives and others as well. Could we get a report from this on some of that and how that might affect elected members specifically? So I'm talking about, I suppose, manslaughter and other charges being brought against executives, CEs, managers, and of course directors of organisations such as us, I'd imagine, and just how that affects local government and local government voice. So I'm sure that sort of advice would be available from work cover or LG work cover or somebody else, but
I'll certainly follow that up for you and present next
That'd be
my
good.
report. Just for a little bit of peace of mind in the interim, the PCBU for Central Highlands Regional Council is Scott Mason as the CEO. So in legislation, the PCBU is ultimately responsible, but I will find out for you as a board as to where the due diligence stops and what implications that has for you as councillors. So I'll bring that back to you.
I know, I don't think I'm in peace of mind that he goes to jail first.
That's only for negligence.
We must make sure that we're doing the right things.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Recommendation that CHRC receive the bi-monthly safety and wellness report for the period to the 30th of June 19. That please. Councillor Nixon and second Councillor Cone in favour. Thank you. Now, because we have only a few moments before the next standing committee meeting is supposed to start, I'm suggesting that we defer the closed session. Unfortunately, sorry to all those people that have just walked in. However, is there any general business? Well, Margaret, I think we shall call the meeting to close. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.